It's Waxing Lyrical Baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical Mainz and Dutts. I'm your host, Mainz, and my colleague in the danger zone in Rainford, weirdly complaining about his microphone. It's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
As many people know, I don't really need the microphone, as I can broadcast to the entire United Kingdom from the comfort of my chair. However,
Correct.
It has come to my attention, and by that I mean I actually listen to the pod, so not only do I sit here and record it, I will go back and listen to it again myself, because that's how much of a, I like the sound of my own voice twat that I am. I've just seemed a little bit quiet, and as we know, that is not me. So I've merely brought a technical complaint to the technical department of this enterprise, and now I'm getting snark.
You're not getting snark. I'm just suggesting that, you were moaning about your microphone, which is accurate. But there you go. So we continue on. It's week 3 here in waxing lyrical NFL land. As always, we're going to plug into the mains. We're going to look at 2-0 teams and 0-2 teams and ask those questions of, do you trust any of them? Do you not? Where are we? We're then going to move on to Neil's fancy darlings of the week. I hope they go better than last week. Fancy loser. Couldn't have been more wrong. And then we get on to fantasy predictions, which we absolutely and utterly stink at. Like, really bad. I
should point out, in our defence,
we're not professionals.
We're not professionals, but, friend of the show, Matt Kelly, always says, in his 2.5 hours that he's speaking,
yeah, I was going to say
that if you want an explanation as to why things go wrong, well, football happened.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. Football did happen. And we'll get into what happened in those footballs when we get to that part of the show. But until that point in the show, let's start, plug into the mains, and look at these really good teams, quote unquote, after 2 weeks, and the really bad teams after 2 weeks. So, Neil, let's look at the 2-0 teams first. I'm going to list them off. There's 7 of those bad boys. 2 of them are AFC teams. 2 of them are in the AFC West. No, not those AFC West teams. It's the Raiders and the Broncos. It's the Bucks, the Panthers, the 49ers, the Rams and the Cardinals. In theory, one of these teams is going down definitely this week as Rams play Bucks. But my first question is, which team, based on what you've seen, are you most confident in?
It's hard to say, because they've all shown flashes of brilliance, of course, and they've all shown weakness as well. I mean, you can argue in terms of the clean football they are playing, the best team of that is the Panthers. But that's just because they're very, very good on defense. They are, of course, conservative to a fault. Like anything from third, 4th and 1 inside the 40, and they're punting, and that's going to bite them. Obviously, when it comes down to a level of confidence, we have to look at the quarterback play. So we're obviously fine with the Bucks. I think we're fine with the Rams. We're still checking to make sure that Stafford is an upgrade on Jared Goff, but it's taking some time to calculate those results. So we'll get back to you on that when we can.
I'm back. I've watched them both throw. I'm okay, thanks. I'm going football player eye test rather than small sample size. I watched the defense give up a load of points and fall behind in the third quarter, and then Matthew Stafford threw it 3 times and they scored. And I've watched Jared Goff for multitude of years, and he has never ever done that. So I'm cool. Stafford's better than Goff. It's over for me. It's fine.
So I think the teams I'm probably most confident in, I say, would be the Buccaneers, the Rams. I don't know about the Cardinals. So I would say the Buccaneers, the Rams, I have no issues with. I have doubts about the other teams. The 49ers worry me. Having watched, their game against the Eagles, and it was can
we do the opposite of fight? Can we do the opposite of Football Man? Because Football Man would say Jimmy Garoppolo should be the starting quarterback because all he ever does is win games for the San Francisco 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo shouldn't be the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers because he's not very good at playing quarterback.
Yeah, he is the ultimate flatline boy. There's nothing to get excited about. There's nothing to get worried about. It's just there.
I stole this.
Ultimate facilitator.
I stole this, but as someone said, did you know that Jimmy Garoppolo is Italian for Alex Smith?
Whoa.
So yeah, that's my penneth worth in it. The interesting thing on the teams that I'm most confident in this is not. I think I'm with you on Bucks and Rams. But do you know which team has got the greatest chance to go the longest undefeated? It's the Carolina Panthers, and I'll tell you why. This week, tonight, as we record on the 23rd of September, the Houston Texans. Next week, the Dallas Cowboys. The week after, the Philadelphia Eagles. The week after that, the Minnesota Vikings. The week after that, the New York Giants. And the week after that, the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh my God.
So
their defense is nasty, by the way.
They could be 6-1. So whether you're confident in their abilities or not,
they are. The record is
they will be a six. Could quite easily be a 6-1 team, which is very interesting. I think
they're a 6-1 team. Bear in mind, and they're not just getting there by 3 points per game, and it needs a couple of defensive scores. If they're clicking still on offense, I say after 7 games, Joe Brady may as well start typing up the resume.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Which of these
picking
teams?
Out the interview suit.
Which of these teams are you least confident in? I assume it's one of the AFC West teams.
Well, it has to be. Now, you know as well as I do that I am a big Derek Carr fan. I always have been. I've had a very nice meal paid for. Thanks to Derek
You're welcome.
Carr. But the way they are playing seems to throw in the face of how they've constructed their roster, in the sense that they thought we're going to be a power running team and they can't run the ball. So they're putting it all on Derek Carr's plate, and for the moment, he's fine with this. The defense at the moment is the defense is overperforming, but you have to think that's going to come back to the mean as well. And plus the fact John Gruden's going to do John Gruden things. The Broncos, again, Teddy Bridgewater is playing well. We'll come to him later. Do I expect him to continue to do this for a course of a 17-game season while Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert are still just working out some kinks? No. But do I think that Denver are going to do better than I thought? I can see it, because the defense is very good.
I think if you look at the two teams, from a talent basis, the Denver Broncos are talented. There was not too long ago, there were people thinking, well, if these guys got Aaron Rodgers, they'd be one of the favourites in the AFC. They didn't get him. They got Teddy Bridgewater, but the rest of the roster stayed the same. So they're still talented. Is Teddy going to be able to do what he needs to do? Not sure, to be honest. But, he's done okay so far, and I think that's the type of quarterback that they needed to get where they can get to in this without an elite quarterback, which is wild card. The Raiders, good on him. We've said this since we started this show. The league's better when the Raiders are good. Unfortunately, the Raiders haven't been good. I don't see it lasting. I'm happy to be wrong on Derek Carr. I have been. It's been proven. It's official. But I'm not sure he's throwing 800 yards every 2 games for the rest of the season, because that would be insanity. And I'm not 100% sure I'm going to live and die by Max Crosby and Yannick Ngakoue being my defensive studs for the rest of the year.
It's many people have said on podcasts I listened to this week, John Gruden can design offense.
Yeah.
John Gruden was Sean McVay before Sean McVay. If he was just left to design offense, the Raiders would be very good. But now let's look at all the draft picks they've spaffed up the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
Since, inverted commas, Mike Mayock has been GM.
Yeah, not good. Let's move on to the 0-2 teams, Neil. The 0-2 teams are the Jets, the Colts, the Giants, the Lions, the Vikings and the Falcons. Bravo, New York, you stink. As an area, although technically it's New Jersey. Do you believe that any of these 0-2 teams can turn it around, and why is it the Vikings?
It's not the Vikings.
Neil's off officially. Off. I was going to say bandwagon, but as they're Vikings, it would be longboat.
Longboat, yeah. They've drafted badly on defense. And again, they probably thought, well, it's all right, we'll scheme them up. All their rookies that they took this year, and I think they took, was it 75?
Yeah.
Didn't play a single snap this weekend.
Ungood.
Well, that is ungood. I mean, this is a team that in a COVID year last year had 11 draft picks and he used them all. Didn't trade up or down or whatnot. Just kept picking players. And then this year you've done it exactly the same again. This is now an issue. You have, excuse me, you've prided yourselves on the fact you want to establish the run and limit yourself to Kirk Cousins' efficiency. Well, now we're going back to the John DeFilippo era where Kirk Cousins is having to air out all the time because your defense can't keep up. So I don't have any faith in any of these teams to turn it around. The Colts are the anti-Panthers in that we could turn around. They could be 0-6, especially if Eason season has begun.
Eason season, indeed.
I think that, well, the big thing we can say, these teams are 0-2 for a lot of reasons. I don't see many of them can look at the reasons they are 0-2 and say, oh, we'll clear that up, we'll be fine.
Yeah, if you go back to the Vikings, we were talking about how, football happened. Like, you and I love Sheil Kapadia, right? Mm-hmm. Sheil Kapadia on The Athletic said that the Vikings had the chance to be the best defense in the league in his preseason predictions. That's how football can get in the way of interesting stories. Yeah. All these teams are really bad at the moment, and you could argue maybe it should be the Colts who could turn it around, but they're bad and injured, and also have a schedule that means they probably won't turn it around. The Jets, rebuilding since 1974, aren't going anywhere. I don't know if you saw that play of the 12-year-old. I think you shared it, actually. The 12-year-old on the 12-year-old TikToker showing the Zach Wilson play is wild. The Giants are playing excellent running quarterback play. With that issue is the rest of the team not very good. Falcons are terrible. I speak regularly to Thomas Willoughby on the touchdown show, and he doesn't want to talk about them anymore, and I don't blame him. And this week, in the opposite game to Bucs v Rams, the Giants play the Falcons in what can only be described as the toilet bowl.
It's getting to the point where many people looked and scratched their heads at the Kyle Pitts selection. More and more people are going to look at it even more because Matt Ryan is starting to look very old. He's not being helped. The offensive line is terrible. Calvin Ridley isn't running as far down the field before they get in the ball because they can't. They can't run the ball. Their defense is a myth. Matt Ryan looks old, but hey, well done. You drafted Kyle Pitts.
So there's, not that I'll defend the Kyle Pitts pick, although I will do, but the issue isn't that you didn't draft a quarterback. The issue is that 2 years before you gave Matt Ryan £700 billion, and if you would have cut him, it would have cost you $60 million in dead cap space. That's the issue, not the drafting thing. You couldn't draft because you'd fucked it up already. So you got someone of talent on the pick. It's like no one's suggesting that Jamar Chase isn't a really talented NFL player. However, what about trying to protect Joe Burrow every once in a while? It's an interesting concept because otherwise he'll run around like his head's cut off and throw 3 interceptions in 3 plays because he's scared for his life. It's a weird thing. Maybe you should think about it.
Yeah, it was always the thing with the Falcons. It was, no, we still think we're good enough. Then why have you traded away Julio?
I never understood that concept. You're either in or you're out, and they decided to do both.
Yeah, you've kept Ryan, you've drafted Pitts, you've traded away Julio. Okay, explain that to me like I'm 5.
Yeah, there's no explanation necessary because it doesn't make any sense. That's if I plugged into the mains. These 0-2 teams are bad, and if someone said these were the first 6 teams picking in the NFL draft in April, I'd be like, yeah, cool, makes sense to me. Let's get on with the fantasy half of the show, and let's start where we always do, with the fantasy darling.
Hello, darling.
Neil, not gonna lie, stunk last week. After 2-1 the first week, 1-2 last week.
Golf for Mike Williams.
Yes, Christian Kirk, 3 catches for 65 yards, although could be seen that his catch towards the end won them the game. Although I'd technically say that the Vikings kicker won the Cardinals the game. Mike Williams, 7 catches, 91 yards, and a score is a win. And Jared Cook, 3 catches for 28 yards is not a win for those who are paying attention.
Yeah, did have a touchdown ruled out for a penalty, so I was close.
Do you get half a point? No, you don't. Close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, Neil, as you, me, and Gorilla Monsoon know. Who are your fancy darlings this week, Neil? Let's start with the first one, please.
The first one's Teddy Bridgewater. I say after 2 games, he's completed 54 of 70 pass attempts for 592 yards. That's 8.5 yards per attempt, career high. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. He's the QB 11 after 2 games. Now they're playing the Jets. The Jets, after 2 games, have allowed 46 completions, for 429 yards, just a single touchdown. They are one of 7 teams without an interception. This game looks like it could get boat racy, but if it does, it'll get there because of what Teddy does initially. So I think if you're struggling at QB this week, which some people are, like people who drafted Matt Ryan, maybe, then you could do a lot worse than Teddy Bridgewater.
Hey Zach, I know you had Bill Belichick last week, and that was a nightmare, but don't worry, this week it's Vic Fangio. Enjoy the NFL. Welcome to the NFL. Fancy darling number 2, Neil.
Fancy darling number 2. This is a bit of a stretch because we're banking on efficiency, but it's one of Teddy's targets. It's Tim Patrick. Now he's only seen 8 targets through 2 games, but he's caught 7 of them for 76 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Teddy Bridgewater has a 145.8 QB rating when he's targeting Tim Patrick. That's the best of all the Broncos pass catchers. So he's not going to be a volume play, but if he hits a 4 for 30 yard and a touchdown, then he could be a decent wide receiver 3. But I think we still need something to happen to one of the tight ends or Cortland Sutton or the running games get bogged down completely for Tim Patrick to get any type of serious volume.
And the final fancy darling, Neil.
Well, as we all know, it is beat Dallas week. So I'm going with the homer pick of Devonta Smith, no matter what, as he's known by to some people. Only has 14 targets on the season, 8 receptions, 87 yards, and a touchdown. However, the Cowboys are basically going through this season trying to see how many defensive players they can lose to COVID on any given week. They are likely to be without Keanu Neal, who's their linebacker/safety, so they're going to be rejigging the defense again. And last 5 games, going back to 2020, wide receivers against the Cowboys are averaging 22 targets per game, 15.4 receptions for 227.8 yards and 1.6 receiving scores per game. So this one could be, a bit of a sneaky shootout. We thought that about Dallas last week, though, so temper. But I think the Eagles are going to want to try and get Devonta Smith back on track, as all he really seemed to do against San Francisco was draw fouls from Josh Norman. So obviously, if the Eagles want to win, they took Devonta Smith for games like this, you'd think they'd get him involved.
Yeah, and also, they've decided that tight ends don't exist in that offense anymore, so makes sense to use a wide receiver.
Yep.
That's it for the good side, but let's go bad side and talk fantasy loser. We baited Hollywood Brown last week. We called him Bakersfield Brown. He gave us a middle finger, 6 catches, 113 yards, and 1 score in a victory over the Kansas City Chiefs. F.U. Dutton, he said in his post-match press conference. Neil, who's this week's fantasy loser?
This week's fantasy loser is just about wiping the egg off his face from last week to have even more thrown in this week. It's Jameis Winston. Now, we all knew that if you throw 5 touchdowns but don't throw for 150 yards, that success is probably not sustainable. He walked into the buzzsaw that is the Phil Snow defense on the Carolina Panthers. Well, Bill Belichick likes playing against rookies, and he also likes playing against people who've been in the league 6 years who still make rookie mistakes. That's Jameis Winston for you. So I believe the Saints are falling to 1 and 2. Jameis Winston will be a big reason for that. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if he was spending large portions of the latter part of this game sat on the bench while Taysom Hill was mopping up.
I love the idea of of how the NFL works on a week-to-week basis. Like, we were talking about 2-0 teams and 0-2 teams, and you were like, 2-0 teams, they're good. 0-2 teams, we're not sure. Then there's the Saints and the Packers, and you're like, I don't understand these teams. Like, I have no idea how the Saints even work. I'm not sure how you boat race the Green Bay Packers and then get absolutely destroyed by the Carolina Panthers. Like, I guess that's the Jameis coaster that you live and die on. But it's insane to think that they were the same team. Now, there was, I guess, mitigating circumstances that there were 7 coaches out with COVID, which is complete and utter insanity. But yeah, I have to say, in games that I didn't think would go that way, I didn't expect the Carolina Panthers to totally dominate the New Orleans Saints.
Because football happened?
Football did happen, Neil. Football did happen. Finally, Neil, let's get on to our fantasy predictions of the week. For the love of God, we suck at this. So last
because
week,
we try to be bold. This is
on game day, right? I'm fine sucking at this. Like, I understand the concept of the show, but we decided, as you quite rightly pointed out, that Los Angeles, I might just call them San Diego, Los Angeles Chargers versus the Dallas Cowboys was going to be a shootout. Do you know how many punts were in that game?
12.
0. So these teams didn't punt, and it was 2017. I'm not even sure how that happens. Maths doesn't seem to make sense. I decided that Dak and Justin Herbert were going to go off and get 80 points. They did not. They did the opposite of that. You said that Keenan Allen would have 15 catches and 2 touchdowns. He had 4 catches for 108 yards, to be fair, but no touchdowns. It's a very un-Keenan Allen-like number, actually. But then again, I guess in the new offense that they're running in Los Angeles, they've made Mike Williams the Michael Thomas in that kind of position. So Keenan Allen's, I guess, is going to run longer things. I'm going to go first this week.
Okay.
Get hyped, Chicago. You've got your new starting quarterback, well, until the other guy comes back, even though he shouldn't play again. But there's a head coach trying to lose his job. I don't know. I'm really confused by what's going on in Chicago. But they've got a quarterback, or it seems that way. And that would be nice, because they haven't had one since like 1985, and they only had him for like 2 years. That's Jim McMahon, for those paying attention. Justin Fields gets 25 plus fantasy points against the Browns. Do you think Allen Robinson was shocked on Sunday that someone threw him a really good pass that hit him in the hands and he wasn't expecting it? He didn't have to do something spectacular, and that's why he dropped it?
Probably. As we say, this is probably the best quarterback situation he's faced since high school, and that was a long time ago. So if you have got by, I'm gonna steal an analogy from Matt Harmon on Yahoo. If you've got by on Papa John's all these years, and then you get taken to an artisanal pizzeria, like a proper brick oven or anything, that first bite is going to feel so weird. It's better than what you've had, but it's different from what you're used to.
Neil, what is your fantasy prediction for this week?
Just harping back to Keenan Allen, he is the only wide receiver in the top 10 in terms of yardage who's yet to score a touchdown.
Oh,
among all wide receivers.
We're not having that Julio Jones thing, are we? He's not entering the Julio zone, is he?
He's the new Julio. He's perfect between the 20s, but once you get inside the red zone, get him off. No point. My prediction, bear in mind, the Baltimore Ravens, I believe, are playing the Detroit Lions. So I'm going to say Lamar 250 through the air, 150 on the ground, and 4 total touchdowns.
Underselling Lamar, obviously. As we speak, Lamar, there's conflicting reports coming out of Baltimore, should we say. One, he didn't practice today, and is questionable, which means my 2-0 dynasty team, which took out defending champs and King of the Hill James Dixon's pits and giggles, are nervous. But Lamar obviously cartwheeled or flipped into the end zone on Sunday. Some are suggesting that he's now injured his hip. Others are saying he's got a stomach bug. As we all know, we're not allowed to talk about Lamar's health situation, so we'll never find out. We'll just see if he plays. But yeah, he's playing the Detroit Lions, who, you know, seem to have a lot of effort but not a lot of talent. So that's probably going to be an issue, as effort only gets you so far.
Not that far at that.
Not that far at that. Neil, that's it in terms of the stuff we want to be talking about. But before we go, where can people catch you before we meet again?
At EndUp13 on Twitter, my Super Bowl odds tracker for Numberfire, tight end report for Rotoviz, scouting report for the Chargers players on 4for4 Football, and also 3 completely different fantasy darlings on the Nat Coombs show this Sunday. So
that's wild.
Enjoy.
What I'll say is, if his are better than mine, then we'll be having words. Neil, you've done a tight end report like that. We talk regularly about it being a barren wasteland. Could it be any barrener or wastelandier?
Well, we're already into Jack Doyle streamer season, so no, it couldn't be more barren.
Okay. I am at Mainz7. Combined, we are at Waxing_Lyrical. If you like listening to me hosting podcasts, first of all, you're weird. Second of all, listen to the touchdown.co.uk's The Touchdown Review. This week, Taib Abu, Calum Squires, Thomas Willoughby, and the brilliant George Somerville, educating me greatly on the SEC, and we shared our fascination with Lane Kiffin. I'm Kiffin curious. I just openly admitted that on a podcast, and this is the second time I've done it. Neil, week 3 is upon us. Rams v Bucks, a possible NFC title game preview. Like last week was a possible AFC title preview. Ravens versus Chiefs. Let's hope it's as good a game, because that would be pretty spectacular. Until next week, these top guys are out.